$2.99.
Sony has always been an innovative company. For more than 20 years they have been leaders in the console industry. By the time the PlayStation launched in the USA in 1996, it had already sold 1 million units in Japan, and as we know, the PlayStation 2 is still the highest selling console of all time. But things haven't always gone their way. They've also had some spectacular failures over the years. Remember the Ibo Dog or the E-Villa? My older viewers probably even remember Betamax. More recently, witness the non-starter that was the PlayStation TV. Back in 2003, Sony released the PSX in Japan. The what now? The Sony PSX? Isn't that just a PlayStation 1, I hear you ask? The answer is no. The PSX is a hybrid digital video recorder or DVR combined with a PlayStation 2. Released just before the holiday season in 2003, it was to be used as a general-purpose consumer device meant for the living room rather than a dedicated game system. It was even rumored that the PlayStation 2 hardware was added at the last minute right before launch. This rumor is backed up by the fact that Sony Corporation marketed the machine and not Sony Computer Entertainment, and it was a total flop, being discontinued in Japan in early 2005. And that's precisely the reason why I have one in my possession, because I am a big fan of Japanese retro consoles and computers. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Sony PSX DVR. So this is the Sony PSX DVR, a hybrid video game system and digital video recorder. My model, the DESR 5100, comes standard with a 160GB hard drive installed. There were 8 configurations of the device all the way up to the DESR 7700, which had a 250GB hard drive and was compatible with PSP games. The DVD drive will read and write CDs and DVDs and will support PS1 and PS2 games, but only Japanese region games are supported. All models come with digital video recording capabilities from analog TV signals as well as composite and S-video inputs. The system is very heavy, weighing in at 13 pounds. It also has a vertical configuration, and while that looks really cool, isn't very practical in terms of desk space. Opening the front flap reveals 2 memory card slots for standard 8MB PS2 memory cards, controls for the DVD, a USB 1.0 port, and a proprietary Sony memory card stick slot. Turning the system around reveals a myriad of connectors. From right to left, we have 2 standard PlayStation 2 DualShock connector ports, 2 75-ohm BNC connectors for TV and pass-through, an S-video input and output, next to that a composite input and output. This next connector is the Japanese-style D terminal, which can provide an RGB signal out of the PSX DVR. To the left of that we have the optical digital audio output, a standard Ethernet port, and then the power connector, which requires 100 volts of AC out of the wall. When you power up the unit, you will be greeted with a unique PSX boot screen in blue, and you will notice a very familiar dashboard. The cross-media bar is a user interface that was used in both the Sony PlayStation 3 and PSP. This is the very first iteration of the interface, and Sony had continued to use the XMB for many years later, not until the Sony PS Vita and PlayStation 4 when the XMB or cross-media bar was phased out. As mentioned, only the Japanese region PS1 and PS2 games are supported. The front-loading DVD drive is a slick mechanism, but it's a little noisy at times. Simply pop the disc in the drive as you normally would and either reboot the system to auto-boot the disc or launch it from the XMB menu just in the same way you would launch a PS3 or PSP game. Given the fact that this system has dedicated PlayStation 2 hardware, games run exactly as you would expect. This is running composite video output going into my trusty Commodore 1702 color monitor. I've always preferred CRTs for PlayStation 2, even though it's composite signal only, it still produces a very nice looking image. So let's take a closer look at the DVR functionality. In this demonstration, I've hooked up a cheap clone Super Nintendo console to the composite inputs in the back of the unit. As you can see, I can now capture video footage and record and save it to the internal hard disk. The DVR functionality works very well, and I couldn't notice any stutter or drop frames at all in my tests. Back when audio TV signals were around, you could use this device as a DVR to capture TV shows like you normally would. The system comes complete with a TV guide listings page where you can schedule recordings too, but obviously none of this works anymore. And because the system comes complete with a DVD burner, you can easily burn any captures you've made to a DVD. So the Sony PSX was certainly innovative and a really nice looking machine, especially something that you would put into your entertainment center in your TV room. But unfortunately, it was plagued with so many problems. The hard drive in this unit is encrypted to the console, and the encryption has not been defeated as of 2017. So if your hard drive does fail, you have no way of recovering the unit. You've effectively bricked your console, so there's nothing you can do about it. Now, the second biggest problem is heat. Now, heat is a big issue with this unit. Now, there is some very subtle ventilation on both sides of the case, but this thing is essentially like throwing a towel on an Xbox 360. It gets extremely hot inside, and when you've got the DVR working or the DVD burner working or the hard drives working, you're generating extra heat, and eventually, like the hard drive, something is going to fail. And more often than not, I've seen issues where these units don't even start